One of the great things about the channel, we get a huge number of comments. So we do on a regular basis go through these. We being myself and Jonas. So Jonas, who are you?
For those that haven't seen me in any previous videos, I am the behind the scenes guy that's responsible for thumbnails, for titling of the videos, for a lot of the community side of things, particularly the Patreon updates that we have.
And the other thing he is when we go out filming on the road, which you see a lot of our videos are filmed out on the road, he is actually the director, film director. He directs me and corrects me, and when I make mistakes, he's the one who keeps those and puts them on the Patreon page for the bloopers and the mistakes. So if you want to see bloopers and mistakes, Patreon membership, details for that down below. Anyway, this is unrehearsed. We're in a new studio. We're trying out different things at the moment. We're looking ahead. We've been running for just over 18 months. Phenomenal growth, very great success. Thank you very much to everyone who has watched any of our videos at any time. Thanks also to those who've clicked like. Thanks for those who've commented. Thanks particularly for those who've subscribed. And a massive big thank you for those Patreon members.
One of the comments I picked out, so this was from Gunnar Parment 5050, says, thank you for your good work. You just made one minor slip of the tongue. You once said that every Tesla has the charge port on the passenger side, but later you said correctly that the charge port is on the left side. This is excusable since you are British.
It's a very good point. It's a bit like plugs as well. That my Tesla has a different plug to those in America. Well, thank you very much for your comment. You're obviously from America. Well, I'm assuming you are, or maybe from Europe. I shouldn't make assumptions. But yeah, for us, Teslas in the UK, it's always on the passenger side at the rear, but technically it's the left-hand side at the rear. And that applies to every single vehicle, and it's something that manufacturers really ought to be doing, is just pick a standardized place. And it doesn't actually matter where it is, but if you always standardize, it makes things a lot easier for the charging. With Tesla, it allowed them to make much shorter cables because they always knew where the charging port was. And that's gone through right the way through to the Cybertruck, which was launched. That also has one on the left-hand side rear. The only exception to this now is one of the future models is not going to have a charging port at all, and that's going to be the RoboCab. And they've already said that they're going fully wireless, so it'll be a capacitor charge. So much like you get the inside a Tesla, for example, you can put your phone on the charging pad and it will charge contactless. And so the Cybertruck will be a contactless charging. That's because there's no driver to plug it in. They don't want to waste time and money making a machine that plugs it in. Far easier just to put a capacitor pad on the road. It drives there, parks there, it's charging. That's all you need. Anyway, let's have another question.
All right, so this is one that was in response to the video we did on the BP Pulse GigaHub.
Remember it.
Where the experience wasn't necessarily very good and ran into a lot of difficulties. This commenter, so this is Craig Waters 127, looks like the experience of another YouTuber. What's his name? The Macmaster? Thought you lot all said he faked it.
Yes, it's a good point. There's a big difference. I was trying to charge. The others, and I won't pick anyone out in particular, usually try to fail. So whenever you see me trying to charge, it's a genuine attempt. I come at it as if I was a new EV driver and I do whatever it says I should be doing. So if it says on the charger you can use contactless, I will try to use contactless. If it says use the app, I'll try to use the app. So the end result might well be similar on some occasions, but the intent is very different. For every one I show with a problem, I probably show 10, 15, 20 videos where just plug in, walk away. In fact, one comes to mind, that's Fastned, when we tried out their auto charge. And my response, I was really shocked with it because it actually responded faster than a Tesla supercharger. I literally plugged in, I was just about to say something, Jonas was filming me at the time, and it started charging. And that one, they got some massive praise praise. You don't see that from some of the petrol head EV critics. So I try and balance things up, but yeah, that was a good point.
And another thing related to that is that some commenters have pointed out that maybe you don't always go in with an open mind. So the BP Pulse intro, you said that it was a bit of a chore and that you had to drag yourself to do it. So do you feel that you're giving these charging networks a fair chance? Yeah,
I really do. The reason I don't want to go there is that they charge 85 pence, and that's just criminal. Nobody should go there and charge and be charged 85 pence. I have an aversion to anyone charging that much for EV charging, particularly when they're not brilliant chargers in the first place. 150 kilowatts, so 300 kilowatts shared, you each get 150 kilowatts. They're not particularly brilliant, and they call that a giga hub. So I am against them, but I do go into these things when I'm charging with an open mind, and I do try to follow the instructions or what other people might be experiencing. I will always favour Tesla and Fastnet now because they do the auto charge. Just make things so much simpler for the EV charging community. If you can go and you pull in and you pull the plug out of the charger, plug it into your car, and it starts, that is what everybody should be aiming for. Make it so simpler. So simple. With Tesla going one further with the RoboCab, they're going to be doing the contactless plates underneath, and that's just making it even simpler. You drive in, you don't have to get out of your car now. You don't have to get the plug and plug it in. So what we ought to be doing is making things really, really, really simple for the charging community. One thing I praise them for, I think on the video, it might be clipped out because he's the one who does the editing. But I praised them that they had canopy there because it was actually raining slightly on that day. And on that particular location, no others, but on that one, there was a canopy so for protecting them. So
I'm not sure if that actually made the car.
Maybe not. I don't know. We film a lot. When we go out, we might film an hour. It cuts down into a 10 or 15 minute video. So I remember filming it, but he then takes over and what ends up being launched on YouTube, I often don't know. Anyway, let's have another question.
This one is from Robert John 6354, stating that you are wrong in stating EV drivers don't park in petrol pumps to use the shop, and maybe £100 fines would deter them.
Yeah, this was a comment I made. I remember making it and saying, what would the petrol car drivers think if we EV drivers actually parked in their petrol spaces? And it's something that now I'm an EV driver, I never do. If I'm going to a garage, maybe to get a sandwich or something on the road, most of them now have a parking space set aside. So I personally would never park in a petrol pump space. Just to nip into the shop to buy something. Just not what I do. Some people might. So I'll use the parking spaces. There are possibly some occasions when people will come across a forecourt which is fairly busy and it is easier to leave their car there. That's for them to do. It's not something I would do. I'd always try and find somewhere else. But I always, in the first place, try and avoid them anyhow because...
Have you actually seen anybody actually doing that? So in an EV, parking up at a petrol pump and going in, or is this something that is not your experience?
I've seen cars doing it. Well, I haven't specifically seen an EV doing it, but quite often people are lazy. You see this at the supermarkets where everyone tries to park as close to the supermarket entrance as they possibly can. And there's a lot of people like that on the petrol stations. If they literally just want to nip in for a coffee or a chocolate bar or a packet of cigarettes, whatever they're buying, it's easier just to pull up there, nip in and out again. And if the place is 3/4 empty, not a big problem. But the issue really is if you start doing it, then when it is a very busy time, you tend to carry on doing it and it causes disruption to others. So don't park in disabled bays, don't park in parent and child bays unless you have a child in the car at the time. Don't use disabled bays unless you've got the blue sticker. Park in the correct places. I often think that, I mean, I'm a little bit overweight. I think there ought to be a weight scale for the car park in a supermarket. And the bigger you are overweight, the further from the supermarket you should park. So at least you get a little bit of exercise every time you go shopping to buy your cream cakes.
I don't think you can be popular on that one.
Okay, let's have another one.
So this was in response to a video which was brace yourself, EV charging speeds are taking a hit. And John Clark, with a lot of letters after the name, asks, why would anybody buy a plug-in hybrid and not charge? Basically, you're buying a car with a lump of concrete to carry around, so dragging down miles per gallon.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's one that I have put forward in several videos. And the horrible answer is it's down to ignorance. When I talk to people who have hybrids, there's usually several different groups. The first group is where the company offers them a hybrid as a company car with a salary sacrifice. And there's so many people Jonas and I have talked to where we go up and say, yeah, we went into work on Monday, the boss came in, said, here's a list of cars you can choose. Which one do you want? You're getting a hybrid. You've got no choice. So they will actually choose a hybrid, probably a plug-in hybrid, because that's all that they can choose at that time. The really sad one is I talk to some people and they say, well, the reason I got a plug-in hybrid was because I was worried about range anxiety for a full battery car. And I can't charge at home. So if I have to rely on public chargers, it could be a problem to me, and I don't know enough about public charging, and so it's safer just to have an electric car which has got a petrol engine in it, so that if I do run out of the battery, then I can just carry on. And if I'm going on a 500-mile journey and there's nowhere to charge on the way, I can always just put petrol in it. So there's this sort of false information. They think if they can't charge at home, a hybrid is a better version for them. They want electric in a way, but they're worried about range anxiety. There are other people who, when they get a car, could be a company car, they'll get a petrol card, an All-Star or something, for use. And they don't want the bother of putting in a home charger, even though many of these people do actually park at home and could fit one, because it's going to cost them money. It's going to be hassle. It's far easier just to jump in the car. Whenever you're running out, you use your petrol card. I guess charged to the company or whatever it is. It's a really sad state of affairs that actually happens, because what ends up happening is, if a battery is not used, if it's discharged and it's pretty much flat, it deteriorates very, very quickly. It's really bad for a battery to be left virtually empty, virtually flat. Equally, it's really damaging to leave it absolutely full at 100% for any length of time. But we're dealing here with plug-in hybrids, and so they can't charge at home, or they don't charge at home, or they won't charge at home. So it never gets charged. But the battery has a battery management system in it, and the battery management system will look after the battery. That's its job. So it'll do things like regenerative braking. So whenever you take your foot off the accelerator, the motor or motors will turn into generators and they'll produce electricity, and that will recharge your battery a little bit. Won't fill your battery. It's not that powerful. And if you're on a motorway, for example, you're not braking at all, and therefore you've got no regenerative power going into your battery. So what happens is that the battery management system will use a regen off the petrol engine. It will use your petrol engine to charge your battery to make sure it doesn't collapse and go flat. And at this point, it's really sad. It's really, it's lunacy that you're using a petrol engine that has an efficiency of somewhere around about 25, some are getting up towards 30%. So you're burning petrol, using about less than a third of it to produce electricity, which you then use, but you never get a full battery. So it's just crazy to me. So it's a total lack of understanding. So for people who've been given one, No blame whatsoever. If you give them the car and you know nothing about it, that's really down to the company. They should educate you a little bit. And also for a lot of people, reps on the road, for example, with a company car, you don't want to wait around for 2 hours or 1 hour while it charges. You just want to fill up with petrol and off you go. So I can understand people doing it.
Just one question on that then. So if it sounds like what you're saying is that hybrid EVs are kind of the worst of all worlds. So if somebody really is on the fence about that, would you suggest that they go fully electric, or if that's not right, just go fully ICE? So are you saying that we shouldn't have this?
No. Plug-in hybrids are actually a really good idea. Well, in actual fact, I've said many times that the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle is actually quite a good concept. It is limited in its scope. It really needs to be plugged in every single day. It's not like a battery electric car where you might get away with a charge once a week because they've got a 50, 60, 70 kilowatt hour battery. The plug-in hybrids only have a 10, 15 kilowatt hour battery. So they're meant for shorter runs. A typical range, 30, 40, 50 miles. Some of them go a little bit more, but not that many. So in an ideal world, get a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, plug it in every single night when you get home, and charge the battery back up again. So that in the morning, when you set off for your commute, which for the average UK driver, 20 or 30 miles, you'll be able to do entirely on the battery. When you get home, plug it in again. The only time you would use the petrol engine would be if you go for some distance at the weekend. Let's say you go down to the beach and it's 100 miles to the beach. You're not going to make that there and back on your battery. They're not meant for that. So what would happen is you'd use your battery for the first bit of the journey, maybe 10 or 20 miles, and then the engine will cut in and away you go, and then you can come back, charge it up, fill it up with petrol, and they work really well. The big snag with all of this is that a lot of people who can't charge at home think a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle is the right choice for them. And it's absolutely, totally the wrong choice for them. Totally wrong, and they should never buy one. They should either go full petrol or they should go full EV. Now, I don't know if this question's going to come up, but we get a load of comments from people saying, I've got a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. I charge it every single night, and it's 2 months since I bought any petrol for the petrol tank. And that raises a question for me, is that if they're going 2 months, they're plugging in every night, and they're going 2 months without putting any petrol in, and they've got a range of about 50 or 60 miles in their particular battery, get a full electric car, 100% BEV, which will have a range of 150, 200, 300 miles. Charge it once a week or plug it in every night either way, and you won't have an issue with it. For many people, it's just this reassurance. Oh, I've always got the petrol engine. It'll get me out of trouble if ever I have trouble with the electrics. In actual fact, what happens is the petrol engine in far too many cases takes over. And that's where it's wrong. Hybrids are a very different kettle of fish altogether. Hybrids you can't plug in. They are not. I mean, the title is the clue to this. A hybrid, there's no plug. So all the hybrid does is it takes regenerative braking electricity and possibly some off the motor, and it puts that into a much smaller battery. These are usually half the size of the plug-in hybrids, and that'll just give you a boost, which, if you think about it, if you get up to 50 miles an hour and a set of traffic lights turns red, you'd normally brake. When you brake, on a normal car, you press a pedal, compress the hydraulic fluid, that presses a brake pad against a disc, and that produces huge amount of friction, which is heat. That's waste energy. That's lost to the atmosphere. They ventilate the discs to keep them cool. So that's just wasted energy. With regen braking, what happens is you don't have a disc, you have your electric motor, and it just flips over into a generator. So it starts producing electricity, and that takes the energy out of the car. So you'll slow down for the traffic lights exactly the same. But with a hybrid vehicle, all of that energy, inertia is called, from 50 miles an hour down to the red traffic light, goes into your battery. And when you set off, that battery energy is released back again. So this, in effect, is free energy. It's not quite free because you have to use your petrol engine to get up to 50 mile an hour in the first place, but you were going to just lose it to heat. So in that sense, it is free.
So in effect, a hybrid, just to be clear then, is one where you can't plug it in, and therefore, in effect, it is just an ICE car with benefits.
Yeah, it is. It just gives you a little bit more efficiency. It recovers some of the energy that you would otherwise lose. It's not a lot. And typically you'll find the price is very similar to the petrol version, and you'll find them about 5%, sometimes a little bit more efficient. That's all. They're not huge. Plug-in hybrids, by the way, plug-in PHEVs, they quote something stupid like 350 miles per gallon. And that's basically charging it up every night at home and never using a petrol engine, which bit of a
cheating, really. It's more just like an EV. Yeah,
it is. So the hybrids, if they're the same price as petrol, get one, does no harm. If they're dearer than petrol, I wouldn't bother, because you've got a battery in it, and that's extra weight, and that weight will be less efficient on the engine than if you didn't have the weight. So if you want to go electric, plug-in hybrid only if you're going to charge every night, and you are going to charge every night. HEVs only if they're the same price as petrol. The answer for most people is a full electric BEV. Most people will cope quite well with those.
Now it's time for a shout out for some of our most loyal followers on the channel, and we can see in terms of how popular they are, and we can also see where we have hearted any comments that they've made, so we can actually track it. So is it Joe Wolf or Jay Wolf?
It's actually Jay Wolf. Hi Jay, we met at Harrogate. I said afterwards I was going to come down and see you sometime. I still am, but I haven't been down your part of the country for, well, I was thinking actually it's about 12 months since I've been down there. But yeah, we had a chat. You met my wife, and it was a good event that we came to. I do notice you commenting quite regularly. I do like a lot of, not everything, but like a lot of what you say. So I do tend to just heart those. So thanks very much for regular contributions. They make such a difference to the channel, and it's motivation for me, because people do watch regularly and give me encouragement to do some more videos. So thanks, Jay.
And one of their most recent comments, this was within the last 24 hours, was just to say, nice to see the Ioniq 6 meetup, and pleased to see they had a successful one. Yeah,
I don't get enough invites. This is an open plea now for, if you have a user group or a club or anything like that, like the Ioniq 6 user group, send me an invite. I can't get to all of them. I might not be able to get to many of them, but if I'm filming in the area and I'm free, and you invite me, I'll try and turn up. It's great to meet other cars. It's great to meet other EV drivers and hear their stories. We got some great stories when we were down there. Nice car. I've not sat in one before. In fact, I didn't actually sit in one, did I?
No, I think we were quite short of time on that particular one, but yeah.
So it's nice to do that. And if people with Volkswagens or BMWs or anything, get in touch. If you've got a user group, send me an invite and I'll let you know whether or not I can attend. And if I can attend, I will be there.
Now, this is one from Darren. Darren is one of our big supporters over on Patreon. In fact, he is the largest supporter that we've got. We had to create a whole separate tier just because he wanted to show his support for the channel. So big thanks to Darren. He'd always struggled to find an easy answer to charging 80% versus 100%, how much damage it actually does to the battery. And so they lease their vehicles regularly charged to 100%, and at the start the Porsche Taycan lease at 100% said I'd be able to do 240 miles. At the end of 3 years, it still said 240 miles. So is there any answer on this one?
There is. I know I got in touch with Darren directly. Thanks very much, Darren, doing great work for the channel. Thank you for your support. I did answer you personally on this one. So you've had an answer already, but for other viewers who haven't had the benefit of seeing that answer, the answer is, from a driver point of view, it makes virtually no difference in the 2 or 3 3 years of a lease as to what is going to happen to your battery. So if you're just leasing it and it's going to go back at the end of 2 or 3 years, you're not going to do an awful lot of harm or good or make a big change within that time. All that looking after a battery will do will extend the overall life of it, and this will be a life that will normally be beyond your ownership of the car. If you were planning on buying a car and running it for the rest of your life, this is your last car ever, then it makes great sense to take a bit more care with it. And whether it does a lot of good or not, then look after it. I've just had a report on mine. You can get these if you have a look down below. There'll probably be a link to that video. You can get your batteries tested and they give you the answers. And I've had an awful lot of people with MG4s have been sending me their figures, and they're talking about having 80, 85, 87% state of charge after 3 years. Mine is 9 years old and the battery's still on 90%. So for me, the Tesla battery is possibly a better battery, or the way they look after the battery is very much better. But in my case, it's dropped 10% in 9 years. At that rate, 70% is the cut-off point where the state of health is such that you probably wouldn't bother keeping it anymore. So at that rate, I got another 10, 20 years use out of my car.
But also, is that linear, or do you tend to see that most of the drop-off is sooner?
That's a really good question. It's not linear. Most of the drop-off happens within the first couple of years and the first, I think it's 20 or 30,000 miles. It's quite a steep drop-off, and then it levels out. The figures from Tesla, I can't give other manufacturers, but the figures from Tesla show that they've done a big survey of all their batteries. They monitor every single car, every single day, every single thing it does. And they have said that there is so little difference between supercharging to 100% every single time and only ever charging on a home charger up to 80% every single time. The difference is negligible. It's just not worth it. Other batteries you find very different. For example, Nissan Leafs. The early days, they had no battery management at all. No heating, no cooling, virtually nothing. People would plug them in and they would literally be deteriorating while they're plugged in because they got up to 100% and they just kept on trying to put charge into it. And these are the batteries that are failing now. So if your car looks after your battery, I could say that you don't have to. If your car doesn't look after your battery, you definitely should. But nowadays, that's all changed. The technology and the computer battery management systems now are very, very different than they were 10 years ago. So for 99% of people, it's not something you really need to worry about. I was planning on keeping mine to be my last car. I might still. I'm in two minds about that. So I do tend never to charge to 100%. Did a trip down to Swansea just the last weekend. Don't know your name, by the way, but I was just checking into the Premier Inn in Swansea, and one of the viewers came up, introduced himself, and was loaded down with baggage, and so was he and his good lady wife. I assume it is his wife. So anyhow, thanks for recognising me, and sorry you couldn't stay and chat longer, but we were both checking in. So yeah, on a long journey, I charged up to 95% in the morning just before I set off. I won't leave it like that overnight. And on the various stops I made, never went anywhere near 100% on the journey. For a journey down to Swansea, it's about 220 miles to where I'm going. And in the winter and on the motorway, I can't get 220 miles out of my car. So I have to stop. So why cram it full 100% when you set off, knowing that you're going to stop anyhow? So I tend to be a bit kinder on my batteries. But great question, Dan. I hope you were happy with what I said to you. And I hope some other people have learned something from that. For now, that's it. Please, if you haven't, subscribe. We know a lot of you haven't. If you do watch the video on a regular basis, please subscribe. Costs nothing to do it. Makes a big difference to us. And as we keep mentioning, Patreon members keep the channel going. So if you are interested in supporting the channel in our new venture starting in the new year, then get in touch down below. All the details down below, and you'll find there's a lot of stuff that's of a lot of interest. So for the moment, that's it from me.
Thank you for watching. Dave takes it on.
Yep. I can't think of anything interesting to say.